Hello and welcome to Slow Pit Stop, the international Formula One podcast by fans for fans all around the world. My name's Arafat, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Mohammed. Say hi, Mohammed.
Hi, Mohammed.
Did you have yourself on mute there or something? And we're also joined by our second favorite Canadian, Adam Avatar.
Joined by and increasingly joined with. This was inverse Miami. He had very little right to win that.
So I think, because at one point the commentator went, actually, any of the top five could win this. And it reminded me of, in Singapore when Carlos Sainz won. I was like, that was a really enjoyable race because although they sort of finished in the order they were in anyway, like we'll get into this and let's talk team by team. But if we start by Red Bull, like Max is one of these people that, he's constantly after perfection, and he had to drive a perfect race to win this race.
Yeah, that's right.
I think often when he is off 20 seconds ahead by himself, you just go, well, that's the car or whatever. You forget about him. And
that's right. Verstappen, Hamilton car. Now we know these guys are really great.
And whatever you think of him as a person or whatever, I'm starting to... People are going to hate this, but I'm starting to be like, oh, maybe the real bad guy was Jos Verstappen and Max is just a victim.
Oh, 100%. Have you seen these quotes of him reassuring George and then reassuring... oh my god, I forgot his name again. The Kiwi with
Lawson?
Looks like fake blonde hair. Yeah, Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
So he's just so nice now.
But
Max?
my
who taught him his
in a race like
epithets?
this,
probably Jos.
Yeah.
In a race like this where people are close to him, you get to appreciate. It was tense because everybody had to be perfect, and like the race Carlos Sainz had, he had to get that DRS perfect, and if anybody made a mistake, like George did in Singapore, that's it over for them. So all of them were driving so well that you just got to appreciate and be like, oh, this is why I enjoy motorsport.
Everyone
but speaking of
maybe
being like
George
perfect
in a
and
very
wonderful
similar way.
In a Red Bull, shall we talk about Perez?
Well, I just want to add one thing about Max, because I think it's pretty obvious when you watch everybody else's race. Everyone made mistakes that cost them something, whether it be Lando with the team decision, not pitting on time, losing the lead, George with, I don't know, shooting himself in the foot multiple times, George actively not wanting to win that race. There's like so many people who just made mistakes. And Max drove the perfect race, but his team had his back and came up with a good strategy.
That's right. That's right. You had George making personal mistakes. Maybe Oscar too, and then you had McLaren make a mistake for Lando, and then ruinously, obviously, Haas make a mistake for Kevin, which might be the most heartbreaking of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, when they were like dominating,
so exciting.
I know.
How much did we all want
crazy?
Kevin to take the lead of the race?
I know. I was like, he was just crawling up, and it was like, because you're watching the cars, right? And at one point it was like Red Bull. Or it was like Mercedes, Red Bull, Haas. It was like so funny.
Haas 1-2, stop the count. Like
it would have been awesome.
What kind of podium would that have been?
Something happens with the Haas's when it's really wet out, because it was wet conditions when he put the car in pole too. So
that's right. Yeah, he's amazing at it, and I have to say, for the F1 TV listeners, like Ruth Buscombe has been such a wonderful addition because she's an ex-strategist, right? Or maybe once always a strategist. I don't know how to put her, but essentially, she's watching and she's showing like, this is the exact number of seconds going to cost them. This is what they're thinking right now. It's such an awesome. It's basically she's like the Jolyon Palmer of strategy now. So we're getting these commentators who
F1 TV again.
Yeah, we're getting commentators who know so much. Like I think that's the perfect match: is two pros and an enthusiast.
Yeah,
that's the lineup you want. And man.
Yeah. Okay, Perez. So what happened with Perez? I missed quali. Well, first of all, 2 races ago, Perez made a decision, or the team made a decision about Perez, and things have only gotten worse.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten worse. Some people are saying he's resting on his laurels now, but no, this is the same time in the year that he dropped off last time. He's just not that good, and I don't want to be a hater, but this sport doesn't tolerate mediocrity. I think that the Constructors is now lost. We have many more races to go.
Well, what Adam? What is your? What do you think
17?
the logic was though, bringing him
16,
back on?
17 more.
What do
Yeah,
you
so
think?
that's the trickiest part to figure out, right? So there are things, if you were being charitable, we could say there were 1-2s at the beginning of the year. So maybe they thought that his form was truly back
Mhm.
and that he was no longer the guinea pig car, that all these changes they were making, they'd started to plateau and they were reasonable again. And so maybe he's good. But, I think that if we're being more logical, it's either has to do with the fact that he brings tons of sponsors and they need that to afford Verstappen, afford whomever. They don't have to pay for Adrian anymore, so I don't know. But they have expensive things to consider. And then probably the most cynical, but unfortunately, in some ways, probable explanation is that Yost said, look, we want a Patsy. We want a Bottas plus. I want my son never to 100%. Be threatened again. But if that's the case, then they really deserve what is going to happen, which is going to be that he won't have a rear gunner like Hamilton lacked in 2021.
Yeah.
And they'll lose both trophies. And I will not have sympathy for the Verstappen family if that was their call.
Yeah, I think Yost has pushed that. And he's like, no, I want to keep Perez around. Because it's even today on the race.com, they had an article about why is Perez signed. Now they're like, look, you had the option of Yuki. Yuki's probably not the next Verstappen or something. Sainz is probably a better choice, but why not at least try Yuki? He's getting better and better each year. Or sign, or get Sainz. Because then if Max does decide to leave for Ferrari or Mercedes tomorrow, then Sainz is there as someone that's good enough. And he'll push Max and Max will push him. And like you said, constructors, they'll do much better in that. But they've sort of rejected those options to go, we're going to go with what's comfortable for one of our drivers to continue getting the best out of him. And, maybe that's right. You look at everything Schumacher and Ferrari achieved. They didn't do that by having Mika Hakkinen in the other car or Montoya, So we'll look back
was
a couple of years.
Are you saying Perez?
So Barrichello was his Bottas.
But would you?
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like I would rank Barrichello better than Perez's current form.
Yeah, but what I mean is Ferrari didn't choose to have like two number one drivers. They didn't get like a Montoya or someone into the other Ferrari.
Yeah, I agree with that. If we're playing F1 strategist, then we're not saying to have Sainz, who is probably going to be sometimes competitive. Yuki's just going to be close enough to be bodyguard, probably. Even Ricciardo probably would be.
Yeah, in my mind,
I think
Ricciardo, if he'd had a better season, it would have been him over Sainz, even though I think Sainz would have been a better number one driver. I think for the organization, I think they wanted Ricciardo to be a bit more like he used to be, and then they'd slot him into that place. But because he's not, like now they're talking about sacking Ricciardo mid-season and having Liam Lawson come in for the second half of the season.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like other silly season stuff, because now if you look at Ferrari is essentially putting two number one drivers into their car now between Charles and Lewis. Yes, maybe they win the constructors. McLaren. Yeah. And so maybe one of them will. I mean, it's very feasible that McLaren can win the constructors. Maybe not this year. I think Red Bull has too much of a lead, but next year, very, very possible. Next year, Ferrari is very possible too. But then what does that mean for the drivers? Does that mean all these drivers fight 2007 style and then
possibly
Max gets it anyway because he's consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what they're counting on, but they've taken too weak a second driver. Because you're not helping anybody from Q1 or Q1 knockout. You're just not.
And that was Bottas.
If it was really the case that you had like a Schumacher era Ferrari on your hands, which, if these contract negotiations started before the, race 7 update on the RB20, then I can see why you thought that way, because you think we don't need a second guy. We just need somebody's money. But that's not what it looks like anymore, and that should have stayed their hand and at least.
And then what happened with Perez? Because
summer,
like what happened? So what happened with Perez? Has his form dropped off? Like every driver hits their peak and then they drop off naturally with age, or is this more of a he's not fitting in the car, or the style of the Red Bull doesn't suit him anymore, or have we always rated him too high and he never deserved the seat?
Yeah, I think many of those things are plausible. So first of all, I think he's pregnant again, so that could slow him down. As they say, every baby costs you a tenth. I think that's true. And then there's, all of these theories make sense. Like he needs a particularly particular car. And maybe he had that at the beginning of the season. The new updates have destabilized him. I think he might have been bad one race before them, though, so not sure. But yeah, I think that all of these have supporting arguments, because I think you go back to 2021, you say, God, he was such a great teammate. Well, actually, as Albon points out on the High Performance podcast, his delta was actually less to Max. He was good enough, but he wasn't that great even then.
It's
We
just
were
the
still
car
seeing
was
him like
flattering
top
him.
10. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Perez is good enough to stay in Formula One. Like, I think he would do very well at Haas, Aston Martin, one of these teams. I think he would reliably bring home a lot of points in the right circumstances, sneak a podium. The times he has won, I think he's generally deserved to win, and he's a good driver. But there's two sides to this. One, as a fan watching the sport, you kind of go, I want to see a bit of competition. Even when Mercedes were dominating, at least you had the Lewis versus Nico conversation. Whereas this just sort of neutralizes all of that. But then as, I don't know, like I totally get the team thing of going, we're just going to put all our eggs in one basket and constructors doesn't matter, because who remembers who was a constructor? We'll be able to say we had the first 8-time world champion, Max Verstappen. That's what Red Bull would want. And if having Perez means Max is never threatened for the win, then maybe that's what they want. It doesn't feel right. Like, I get it. I'm like, I think Yuki should be in that car, or Sainz, or a better Ricardo.
Yeah.
But
Yuki deserves it. He's done his time. They have to fulfill the Honda promise. They might specifically not because of that broken marriage with Honda, but
they should have let him go to Audi then. If they're not going to give him Red Bull, they should have allowed him to go to Audi and flourish elsewhere.
The sad thing with both of those guys, Ricardo and Yuki, is they're just, at this point, they're kind of in a state of, I'm just happy to be here at all. Which also makes them the perfect patsies for a second seat.
That's what I was
like,
thinking.
Hey man, can you just say you're happy to be here?
And that's what Perez was,
and let Max
though, in
through
2020. In 2020, Perez was just happy to be here. I will do anything for the team.
That's right.
And
and then he started saying, like, we would be leading the championship if we didn't have that issue in Australia, things like that. And then you were like, oh, he thinks he's number one. And then Yos woke from his slumber. He bolted up right at night.
All right, so that's Red Bull. Who's next on our roster?
So we're going to talk about McLaren, but we've already been talking for ages. McLaren, Lando got unlucky with the safety car. So sad. Anyway, Mercedes.
Oh my god, Mercedes. So I threw this whole fit on the last episode, right, where I walked off camera because how dare Mercedes mess up Lewis's strategy, only for them to do it all over again this race. But we have to talk about this George Russell Lewis Hamilton divide. That is, like, I don't know if I've seen this happen to this extent when other drivers are leaving their team. Have we seen such a friction between that driver and the team? Like, I don't know. There's clear and open friction now, I think, between Lewis and the rest of the team. And, he's going out and saying things like, I don't think I'm ever going to finish ahead of George in qualifying. And whether he's being dramatic or not, he's still he's at least frustrated about something. And any time Lewis is ahead of George activates like killer 8-time champion mode and does whatever he can to get around Lewis and like his side of the garage. I think there's like open animosity now, is what is the vibe that I'm getting. I don't know. What do you think?
Adam, how does medical training work where you have been? Do you move from hospital to hospital?
Yeah, it's different. I think in America you're assigned to a hospital. In Canada you're assigned to a university, and then you go to all the affiliated hospitals.
Yeah.
That's what we do too.
I've rotated like 11, 12 times. And for me, when I go to a new hospital, I'm initially for the first month angry that everything is different. And I'm like, why is the paper like this over here? And why does the printer work like this? And why does the key card, why is the doors pull instead of push? So the first month I spend just being upset that everything is different. And then you ease into it and you're like, right, I'm part of the team now. I'm going to try hard. I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And then it hits sort of May, June. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of July, I'm going to get kicked out and sent elsewhere. And I just mentally like check out. Not like in
Right.
terms of patient care. Obviously, I'm still doing that, but in terms of all the like going above and beyond teamwork, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. I'm just like,
Oh, would you like to do a presentation on that? Yeah, I'm good.
no, exactly. I'm not going to. Are you going to pay me? No, then I don't care. I got asked the other day. They were like, "Oh, do you want to help us like with some teaching something?" And I was just like, "No, why would I?" Like, anyway. And I'm sure if they'd asked me in September, I would have been like, "Yeah, of course, I'm like part of this team and this family and blah blah." And then this part of the year, I'm just like, "No, I'm not doing that." And I remember someone was talking about, that year when like COVID year when everybody moved before the season even started, and they were talking about how McLaren aren't going to purposefully disadvantage Sainz, but eventually they have to stop letting him come to all the briefing meetings and all that kind of stuff. And it's a bit like, I don't know where I read this, but it was, the upgrades that are coming to the car. Someone was like, George is getting all the information on it, whereas Lewis has just been given superficial information. There's a new upgrade, feel it out, see how it goes. And I think probably Lewis is of the personality where it's important to him to feel like part of the family rather than an employee. And that was one of the big things when he moved from McLaren to Mercedes, because McLaren always saw him as a little boy. They knew him since he was 13. He was suddenly part of the team. He was part of the core team, the inner circle. I think he feels like an employee just now. And even if it's just psychological or the fact that he's not being given all the information or whatever else, I think that is affecting motivation and performance. Having said that, I think had a couple of things gone more correctly, he would have finished ahead of George anyway. But
I think that's a logical
I'm
way
looking
of
forward
looking
to
at
next year.
It's not personal. It's just that's what you do when you're phasing out.
Yeah.
If you wanted to look at it more cynically, it could be, Lewis wanted to be a part owner in his negotiation, and they said, "Screw you, you're an employee.
Yeah.
You're not an owner." I think that's pretty accurate, though. I think that's very fair, and Sainz has experienced more than anyone. I look at Sainz and Ricardo now, and you have to think that life has not been kind to the disloyal, the guys who jumped teams and jumped teams and jumped teams.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily paid off for Fernando either, but at least he has some tenure.
Yeah. Magnussen too might be getting kicked out for the third time after jumping all these teams.
I have very mixed feelings about that. I don't know if we're have another Haas corner, but
let's just go off and do a Haas tidbit.
Yeah, Magnussen has been such a good team player. He's the team player that Ocon thinks he is, and apparently. And I don't know. I'm starting to really warm to him. I don't know why, but I was so overjoyed for him in this wet race, and I just feel like, they say Lando and Norris. I mean, Lando and Oscar are the best driver pairing out there. But I don't know if you give a good car to both Magnussen and Hulk, I think they'd have a grand old time. Something about that pairing I just love.
Yeah,
but I certainly love that they're doing unexpectedly well, because it's got to be so stressful for Ayao taking over with maybe 2 months warning.
It was definitely a gamble to go on the full wets, and I know nothing about tire strategy, but I thought they should all have started on the full wets, but I think that's because I was personally full wet, and so I don't.
No, but I think that's fair, because the intermediate tire just used to be better at everything. The problem is that the previous generations of wet were trash, and you couldn't know that this one was good because testing is so limited now. So this was the test, and now every team is going to know for the rest of the year that if they see a real rain, they can actually use this previously garbage tire.
But then it fizzled out because the track dried up so quickly. So then it's like, well, do we even need to be on the full wet? Let's just stay on the intermediate,
That's right.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was really fun watching them push ahead and just overtake everyone. It was almost like
Kevin's stop had been good. How many places would he have kept, given that it still cost you that much time? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was.
That was
an
8-second stop instead of 3. I mean.
Oh wait, hold on. Wait, what? There was an 8-second Haas stop? I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, no, that was part of the problem. Is Kevin's stop was long when he put on the inter. So, and then he said, "If you weren't ready, why did you call me in?" And the guy said, "We were supposed to be ready. Something went horribly wrong. I'm sorry, Kev."
I didn't know that. I didn't know this happened.
Yeah, he got screwed over, but the thing is, even with a good stop, it sounds like what would have been maybe the best case scenario is he had a fresher inter, and does that matter as much as a fresher slick anyway? It's hard to tell.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Let's real quick go back to Mercedes and just talk about George Russell, and let's just all point and laugh at him for a little bit, because what was that performance? like he should be very lucky to have been P3. He should have been P4.
Yeah.
He should have been in the wall. I'm surprised he kept it on the track.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase everybody's using is rookie mistake, including he himself is using.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's Schadenfreude or what, but I think it's just because I'm a Hamilton fan. Obviously, there's a bias. So, like, because he's Hamilton's teammate, I want Hamilton to beat him. When he was at Williams, I was like, oh, yeah, this guy's great. And objectively, he probably is a very good driver over a single lap, Mr. Saturday. But he has a bad time on Sundays. He has a really bad time on Sundays.
You know how the rain brings the cream up to the top? Whatever is the opposite of the cream is George, and he goes to the bottom. Like,
the water.
He cannot handle. He just can't handle the pressure in any instance. It was still so wet at the start, and so everybody kind of like took it easy at the start. But I think if Verstappen had a little bit more grip, a little less water on the track, and he like really went for it, there's no way George would have held on. I just can't see him having held on at the start. He's just so mistake prone, and it's amazing to me to know. It's like if you've ever been in a situation where you meet your job replacement before you leave, and they're worse than you, and you already hate your company, and you leave like, I'm leaving them in that person's hands. Like, I'm just so happy that Mercedes is getting left in George Russell's hands. They will never be. You're not going to see the same run of domination until major changes occur in their like.
Do you know what would be really funny? Like, George is with them, loyal all the way to the end, wins a bunch of races, whatever, and then retires, and then Mercedes become dominant again.
I need that to happen, but that's the Vettel thing, isn't it? Isn't that exactly what happened with Seb? It's like he leaves Red Bull, right, and then he never gets that domination, and then as soon as he leaves, Red Bull is dominant again. Oh, but I guess it's a little different. He wasn't at Red Bull for those years, but
there was quite a big gap there.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's fun to point at George and laugh, and I'm glad he embarrassed himself. What other team do you have? Ferrari? Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was actually sat around a bunch. I don't know what happened, but that whole like section of the grandstand was only Ferrari fans and like two very vocal McLaren fans, and I think I was the only guy rooting for Lewis. But they were all so happy to have me because they were like, "We're gonna have you next year. You're gonna be on our team next year."
So funny.
It was like so cordial. I've never been offered more alcohol by people in my life than by those Ferrari fans.
Oh, that's their love language. That's I was gonna say you guys are gonna be not only Christian but Catholic next year. Like, you have no choice. You'll be papists next year. That's it.
Like, it's so nice because they were telling us like the way you move with your driver, we have ultimate allegiance to the team. So anyone who comes to the team, we show them our full support. And I was like, oh, that's good. So this is going to really work out very well because we're going to love Ferrari and you're going to love Lewis next year. So it's going to work
great.
out.
I'm so happy for all of y'all.
Nice
the thing I'll say, like, to be provocative deliberately a little bit, is that like, if this Mercedes pace is real, then what if Mercedes has a better car than Ferrari next year?
I have thought about that. I think it's very reasonable. The only thing that, like, the other factors you have to put into play is I think Lewis makes a difference in a slightly slower car. I think he could still drag that car up. You saw it in 2021 when Red Bull was faster. Lewis would still be like only 2 seconds behind Max because he's able to drag the car up. So I think he'll be the difference maker. And I don't think George has it in him to fully capitalize on all situations. It hasn't been
since McLaren that he's had and maybe, I guess you could say Nico, maybe, where he's had a teammate that's obviously also a number one.
It's true.
So it'll be man, if he can do it, then that's it.
I think my personal thing is I just want to see him win races again. I think we're a long way off talking about another championship.
Yeah,
but
to our fans,
a race winner again.
Yeah, that would be nice. But I think Arafat, you need to have more faith in our driver. He can win a championship.
I have perfect faith in our driver. It's the teams he finds himself in, and their strategy masterclasses that I don't have faith in. The driver is not a concern.
What happened with Charles Leclerc this race? I know he had an
to
engine
control
issue.
delete his engine. Yeah. The other thing that was quite funny was Sainz was like at one point just spun out, and he took out Alex Albon. So Alex Albon was ahead of Pierre Gasly. And when he took Albon out, he took him out of the points and then helped Alpine jump ahead of Williams in the constructors. And like Williams are like, Sainz, we're trying to give you a job. Like it's us or you crash out of F1. We're trying to give you a job, and you just took our points away and put us behind Alpine. What is happening?
Yeah. So that was the one where I didn't understood what happened. I just saw like, because it was on the other side of the track, so I really had no clue what was going on the other side of the track. And then I texted you. I was like, Arafat, you need to explain whatever is about to happen in the future for you in 30 seconds. And then you're like, what? And then you're like, oh, Sainz has spun out and crashed into Albon. But then like right at that time, Perez also crashed into the wall and broke his tailbone. So I just had I was like, what is going on? But yeah, what a race. And nobody could have predicted.
Tailbone of the car, right?
Did he hit a car, Perez?
No, did he broke the tailbone of his car, you mean, right?
Yeah, his car.
His rear wing?
Not his personal tailbone.
Oh, I didn't
not his
hear
personal
about that. Okay.
Yeah, of his car.
Talking about that briefly, that penalty was a bit much. I think it was just because of the admission of why they were bringing the car back. You heard that Perez has got a 3-place grid penalty for driving the car.
Don't like teams do that a lot, though?
A lot. Like the first thing you hear is, "Hey, can you bring it home?"
Yeah.
Can you bring it in?
My feeling on this is, remember a couple of episodes ago, I was saying, like the FIA structure and Bin Sulayem and all of these people, they need to be working on better stewarding and refereeing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all agree.
Because the team is always going to say bring it back. You can't blame the team for that. I think they need to have more stewarding systems and someone to be able to come on the radio and be like, Perez, we've seen your car, it looks unsafe, we need you to pull over. Like, take the decision away from the team entirely.
Yeah.
You know? Because the team is always going to say, come back to the pits. Like, obviously. So I think if you see a car that's unsafe, they can't be like, well, you know, we expect the team to police themselves, and if they get the decision wrong, we'll punish them. Like,
yeah, it's not fair.
You police them. You, like in any other sport, you think about it, like football or whatever. A team doesn't go, I think we're supposed to give a free kick there to the other guys. Is that right? And the ref is like, yeah. And if you don't, the ref's not going to be like, I'm deducting 3 points from you from the next match or whatever. Like, the referee says you need to give a free kick.
And I think
only the IRS is allowed to do that. Guess
exactly. I was thinking about the American tax system.
Oh, you got it wrong.
That's literally how it is. That's why everyone overpays, because you have no idea what the correct number is. You have to pay, only the IRS knows, and they'll never tell you. But I think that, what was I going to add about this? Oh yeah, you put any team in that case, like any team is in a position where like, if we cause a safety car, it'll be bad for us. They're always going to say come back, and it's very different than match fixing. And I think Team LH has really taken Will Buxton's quote and ran with it, and I think he deleted that on purpose, because like I'm gonna break the Team LH buck, and I don't think it's true. What Will Buxton was basically comparing, he said it's only a couple of degrees separated from Singapore when they purposely caused Renault caused
Renault.
Oh, it's Renault. Yeah, they purposely caused a safety car to let Fernando win, and I think that's very different, because that's changing like the race. That's like having your driver crash into someone. This is
this for me, like race,
that thought didn't even cross my mind. Yeah, that didn't cross my mind that like the team is always going to try and do what's best for the team, which is why I think you need an independent outside to say that car's unsafe, stop. The bigger concern that I had in my mind with him wandering around was, I just remembered the Barrichello Massa situation, and I was like, if something flies off the back of his car and hits another driver, it's a huge safety thing, right? Yeah. And it's different to having a puncture and trundling around, because people warn you, say, hey, there's a slow car ahead, as opposed to a car that can launch something off the back of itself.
I guess that's true.
Yeah,
But
so police
I
yourself,
still,
and
I
I don't know,
still
did anything
don't
else
really
fall
blame
off?
Red
Could
Bull
it
for
have?
saying come back to the pits, because that's what they're going to do. I think I blame the FIA and
Mhm.
F1 as a whole for not having systems in place to say
We
to the
need to
driver,
have like a weekly. Remember we used to do Horner's Corner, but we don't need to do that
yeah,
anymore because he's like kind of
yeah.
mellowed out. We need to have
Well, he's not
an
allowed to talk
FIA.
anymore.
Is he even on Sky anymore? I don't
Oh
watch that stuff. Do
No,
they
he's
call him?
not. I don't think I
no,
haven't
they
seen him
don't.
on
They don't
Sky.
interview him anymore. Also, did you
Yeah.
see?
Do they talk to
I
anyone? Oh,
didn't.
they talk to James, don't they?
Yeah, they talked to James Vowles
James,
a lot.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
remember,
that's
I
great.
said
Who doesn't want to
we'll
hear that
find
man
out the
speak?
truth depending on what Jerry Horner
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I didn't look at the articles, but there's lots of headlines being like, "She's changed her name back to Jerry Halliwell," and I'm like, the plot
Is
thickens.
that true?
Yeah,
Hasn't she
like those
always
headlines.
been
I didn't
Jerry
open the
Halliwell?
story. No,
Mm.
she was Jerry Halliwell Horner, and she used to go by Jerry
Oh,
Horner. But
hold on.
recently, she started using Jerry Halliwell.
We don't do F1
Interesting.
gossip enough, so I'm just gonna look at. We're gonna do a
Yeah, I
search.
want to know if that's true because that is very telling. If so,
Oh yeah, this is true. Jerry Halliwell drops Horner's surname in her video for Dior. So in her video for Dior, when they put the name up like on the screen, she's asked him to drop Horner from it. That's
okay,
a
all
real
right.
objective data, as I've
You
been
should
taught
never
to
have
say in
had that
medicine.
there if you want to move product anyway. Obviously, they're buying Spice Girl stuff. Like, what are you doing?
That's very true.
They always say that if you're an influencer, you should, even if you're in a relationship, you shouldn't say so that people will all just like lust after you and buy your stuff.
Yeah,
So it's never
yeah,
too late, Jerry. Get that bag again.
yeah. All right, so that was the teams. Get that back again. Is there anything left with silly season we can talk about before we wrap up? We're almost at the end of the episode, I believe.
Signs to Williams, Sargent out. Zhou will be lucky if Alpine take him. Pierre Gasly and Valtteri Bottas will have a cycling race. Whoever wins gets to go to Audi. Whoever loses gets to go to Alpine. The other Alpine seat will be either Jack Doohan because he's cheap, or Zhou because he comes with Chinese sponsorship. And
Yeah,
Liam Lawson will take
Lawson
Ricardo's
or
seat.
Ricardo? Oh, you think it? All right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Adam? Any addendums to that?
No, I just really, 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 really hope that Red Bull can Checo, and there's a clause for it. It's time to go. My fantasy is Checo out, Yuki in, and then we can have both of the Australasians, the Oceanians at Visa Cash App RB, palling around together. I think that's the perfect scenario. I think
Wait,
Checo
Piastri?
should go
Who's
home.
the other one? Oh, Lawson. I forgot
No,
about.
Lawson and Ricardo.
Yeah,
Lawson
Yeah,
and
I just
Ricardo.
think that I think they should just send Perez home for the
Oh,
holidays.
that would have
and
been
then
so
just
good.
cancel his ticket back.
That would have been so. Or yeah, that would have been so. Or put
How much
Perez.
product is he moving now? Like I have one Mexican friend. Hi Diego. I don't know if you're ever gonna watch this. Like he says he's ashamed of Checo. Like he's not still cheering for him.
But
So.
I didn't, for the first race ever that I've been to live, I did not hear the Checo. It was everywhere before, like it was, but I didn't hear it this time. And I think maybe
Checo.
no, it was
check out, early check out.
Oh, Checo. I know we're not supposed to pretend.
That's my call.
I know we're not supposed to
And
pretend
people are
like
saying that.
What?
Yeah.
No, I was gonna-
Say it.
I know we're not supposed to pretend like we're better than these drivers, but unfortunately, sometimes I think I do.
Yeah, but honestly. My move, of course, is we're going to take Guan Yu Zhou to Alpine. The Gikai money comes in. Gikai took over Lotus. Alpine becomes Lotus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Master
They just
plan,
become an
baby.
entirely UK-based
I mean,
team
Alpine
with
are
none of
looking
this,
for a new engine supplier.
miscommunication with France and stuff. Are they?
Yeah, Alpine from 2026 onwards are looking for a new engine supplier.
But
They're
they
shopping
are
around.
the engine supplier.
No, they want to stop. They
They
want
don't
to
like
stop
their
providing
own-
an engine.
If that's
They
true,
don't
then
like their
they're
own engine.
100% set.
They
Then
don't like-
Gikai can just do it, or they can get the Toyota if they're going to go NA. And
Guys,
then they're set.
Our engine sucks.
Oh, I love that.
Can somebody else give us their engine? Also,
They're like,
nobody
guys,
buys
there's
from
this
us.
huge opportunity in 2026 for us to new engine rules. We could jump ahead of everyone. We could be really, really good. Or counterpoint, let's see if we can buy a Mercedes.
All right. I think that is it for us and everything we had to discuss. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Adam, for joining us today. I'm glad we got to compare and contrast our experiences, but it was basically compare. They were very similar with the wet and the traffic and everything. So, but yeah, it was overall a good weekend, and I think it a really, really incredible race, and reminds me, I'm glad we got this. I could feel alive again when it comes to F1. But thank you, everyone. We will see you after the Spanish Grand Prix in a couple weeks. Bye.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Bye.